That's good.
Welcome to tonight's live town hall with Mayor Patrick Brown. Your host is Michael A. Charbon.
Welcome to Live Town Hall and Happy New Year to you. I hope everybody's good and warm in this wonderful cold day. I think Brampton got about as much snow as everybody else did in the province, but hoping everybody's having a good year and good New Year, I should say. And we're on the road to good things. And speaking of good things, why don't we welcome the Mayor of Brampton, Mr. Patrick Brown. Mayor Brown, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on where you are in the world watching us. How are you?
Well, if you're in Brampton, it's good evening. So good evening, Brampton.
Good evening, Brampton, it is. So as usual, the questions that we're going to talk about tonight, you and I have not discussed, so you don't know what's going to be on the table today. So I just want you to confirm that so our friends at home realize that basically you're under the gun, impromptu-wise.
I have no idea what you're going to ask, and that's the way I like it.
Beautiful. That's a bad. Okay. So the most important thing we want to talk about right off the top, and I think that's a question that is weighing on everybody, is opening up. Schools are opening back up. We're looking at a lot of the numbers now going down. So there's more and more people who are starting to believe that they can live a normal life again. When we look at Brampton, so many people in Brampton do a lot of work and do a lot of travel back and forth. What does this reopening mean for the citizens of Brampton? And what, as the mayor of Brampton, what is City Council doing to help this reopening and the schools?
Well, first of all, I want to say it's time. It's time for this reopening. We have had more school days lost than any other jurisdiction in North America. And there's a huge cost for children. There's a mental health toll, there's a learning toll. And I think we have to trust the science and the data. And Dr. Lowe has recommended strongly that we have children back in school, that we reopen schools. The pediatric associations have as well. And so I know there are some people that are nervous about kids back in school, but we do need to trust the top medical advice. And when they close schools, everyone said, listen to the physicians, listen to the data, follow the medical advice. And when they say it's time to reopen, now is not the time to say, we're going to make political decisions rather than following the medical advice. And, I would go further and say, Canada has really taken a cautious approach. Ontario has taken a cautious approach. And if you look at most jurisdictions in the world, they haven't seen the level of disruptions that we have seen here. We got to get kids back in school, and I'm glad that the schools are open again. In terms of the broader reopening, I also think it's time. The fact that we've have recreation centers closed and restaurants closed, it's an economic tidal wave, and we need to get those businesses open again. We need to make sure that we don't lose businesses in our community. And in terms of recreation centers, there's a public health consequence for having rec centers closed. It's wellness. Our rec centers in Brampton are very busy, and that physical activity is important to public health. So I'm very pleased that they'll be reopening on January 31st. And if the province would suggest a delay in that, I would be opposed to any delay. It's already been long enough.
Well, bravo to that. Economic tidal wave is true. I've talked to several business owners in Brampton. It's a grave time, and they're really looking forward to opening up and getting back to some semblance of normal. I want to commend you. I saw you going down on an inner tube down Chinguacousy Park. You're a father now, for goodness sakes. I mean, I saw that video. I was so very impressed. What in goodness' name convinced you to sit your butt on an inner tube going down Chinguacousy? I mean, well, that's you on a sled. That's a little bit better.
Well, I've done both, actually. And the reason why I want to showcase our great outdoor amenities in Brampton. I know this lockdown's tough on families and kids, and with our rec centers closed, there's not a lot of opportunities for physical activity. And so in every part of the city, I'm showcasing our outdoor amenities with the local councillors to highlight in Brampton, there are lots of options outdoors to safely get your exercise. And whether it is skating, playing hockey, going down Shinkuzi Park on inner tube, or going down in a toboggan, or snowshoeing like I did with Councillor Medeiros and Bowman. Councillor Willens tells me he wants to have me out cross-country skiing. There is a plethora of activities in the city, and our council is showcasing these beautiful options.
Well, the daredevils of Vicente and Santos and you going down, I tell you. Santos looks much better in the snow than Vicente. Anyways, so I also wanted to comment one other thing. Every time I turn on CP24, for goodness sakes, I'm seeing you do something on there. One of the things that you promised, from what I remember in your campaign, was you wanted to put Brampton first. And you wanted to make sure that Brampton was in the news. And there we are. Like I said, it's like, are they paying you something? Are you a contributor now at CP24? Because I'm constantly seeing you on that and waving the Brampton flag. And I think that's a great thing, because it's well-deserved and a very important thing for the brand of Brampton.
Well, I think Brampton's been generating a lot of great ideas, and the fact that we have media from CP24 to CBC to Global to City TV picking it up is something that I welcome, because I want Brampton to be known as an environment where we come up with great new approaches to challenges that we face. And I look, we just talked about outdoor amenities. Our backyard garden program 2 years ago became a national example. Our backyard rink program right now that I've launched with Wendell Clark and Doug Gilmore has taken off in an incredible way, where we have phenomenal interest. And I think folks from other cities are asking us that if they could showcase their backyard rink. They dreamed of having a contest like this too. So I think there's a lot of things we're doing that are setting a great example.
Well, I think it's great. I saw a whole bunch of helicopter shots. A couple of the networks in the Toronto or Greater Toronto region keep showing that. So I think that's really great. Again, it's super spirit for Brampton and keeps things in the positive. Now, I understand the submissions are open till the 31st of January. Have you gotten a lot of submissions? And, I guess you're going to have maybe a wobbly pop and a burger with Wendell and Doug?
Well, there's been hundreds of submissions. People are really excited about this contest, and there's some amazing prizes, from Leaf tickets to Wayne Gretzky's Team Canada jersey to having Doug Gilmore, Wendell Clark play on your backyard rink. This is a fun way to make the best of the lockdown, but it's even better than that. We've had someone donate lumber for those that don't have the ability to have access to lumber to build their backyard rink. We've had the Brampton Fire Department offer on their spare time to come and provide water for those that don't have water access in their backyard. So we're really trying to make it as easy as possible to be active, to have some fun during this lockdown. And I just love the interest there is. I want to give a big shout out to Brampton Minor Hockey and the Canadettes. These two organizations have really helped us promote this contest. And people are sending me photos of their rinks all the time, and I love it. There's lots of beautiful backyard rinks in Brampton right now.
Well, the Canadettes surely are a great ambassador for the city of Brampton. I had the pleasure of working with them on a couple of little things several years back. So 3 cheers to the Canadettes. Let's get into a little bit of national quasi-provincial politics. Bill 21, Francois Legault, the Premier of Quebec, put forth Bill 21, basically saying that anybody with a headdress can't take a municipal office and a bunch of other things. You were one of the pivotal mayors who objected to that and started to put forth a movement to question the legitimacy of such a law being passed in Canada. Just wanted to get an update as to where things are at and how close you are being able to get some type of resolution to this.
So Bill 21 is an attack on one of Canada's foundational principles of religious freedom. Many residents in Brampton have come to Canada, have fled countries where they were persecuted based on their faith. Canada actually had an ambassador of religious freedom where we'd lecture other countries on the importance of religious freedom. I always say, Michael, it doesn't matter who you love, where you're born, the color of your skin, what God you worship. If you're willing to work hard in Canada, everyone can succeed. And the notion that could be diminished in one province is scary. Right now, there is a legal challenge to Bill 21, and the folks challenging that draconian bill NCCM, the World Sikh Organization, and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association have fundraised largely on the backs of racialized minorities. They've raised 1.1 million, but to take it all the way to the Supreme Court, it's going to cost about 3 million. So I challenged Canadian big cities to contribute to this legal challenge of Bill 21 because of the lack of leadership in Ottawa, where none of the political parties want to touch this because they're worried about losing votes in Quebec. It's really up to Canada's big cities to step into the fold and say, we're not going to allow religious freedom to be diminished. And what's been beautiful is big cities across the country have taken up Brampton's challenge, from Victoria to Calgary to Winnipeg. Across the country, we're seeing cities step up and say, we too don't want to see religious freedom in the Canadian Charter of Rights trampled on. And once again, a great Brampton initiative is catching fire across the country.
Well, true to form, you sound like a conservative federal political leader, if I can be so bold as to
well,
say.
and no, and
But I'm just saying. I mean, it's very well spoken. This is a very emotional issue for a lot of people, and particularly with the multiculturalism that exists within Brampton, it's a heartstroke. I mean, we just wanted to point out that you have the opportunity, you as the viewers out there, at citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. You can leave your comments, you can ask questions, and you can participate. That's part of what this whole presentation is about. And I think,
well, and Michael, I was going to add one thing in, and that is, I certainly don't see Bill 21 as a partisan issue. I've actually been very clear that I think the NDP, the Conservative Party, and the Liberal Party have all failed us on this issue. They're so scared of losing votes in Quebec, they have traded a foundational principle for political calculations, and that is so wrong. And so this is not a criticism just at the governing party; it's the opposition too. They've abdicated their responsibility to stand up for the Canadian Charter.
Yes, and an emotional issue it is, but of course, with Quebec's sovereignty, as one would say, sometimes they get to decide their own rules. Chopping to another topic now. I remember a famous quote that said, all roads lead to Brampton. And within Brampton, you see how much the supply chain is connected to Brampton with all the highways, etc. So trucking is a huge, huge thing. Canada does about $650 billion a year in trade with the United States, of which 75% of it is done through trucks. There's a movement that's called the Freedom Rally, which they've started in British Columbia, and they're driving all the way to Ottawa, 2,700 miles, 54 hours, and they're demonstrating against the restrictions that the federal government has put on for truckers. American truckers who are not vaccinated cannot come in. Any vaccinated trucker who comes in, Canadian or American, must have a PCR test. They're saying that this hinders their process to be truck drivers and their livelihood. With trucking and so many major companies within the confines of Brampton who use trucking, where does the city of Brampton sit on that?
So two comments here. One, I believe that public protest is part of democracy. And whether you like a protest or you dislike a protest, people are entitled to have their opinions heard. And, you know, I remember serving in the House of Commons or at Queen's Park, and there tended to be protests almost every other day on some issue. And I am proud to live in a country where that's possible. In terms of the vaccination policies, you know, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I believe in science. I believe that vaccines save lives, and I've encouraged everyone in Brampton who can to get vaccinated. But we've also taken a reasonable and a balanced approach in Brampton and in Peel region. The region of Peel government and the city of Brampton municipal government have encouraged all employees to get vaccinated. But those that don't get vaccinated are not being terminated like we're seeing in some other areas. Our police officers, we encourage them to get vaccinated. We have high vaccination rates. Our firefighters, we encourage them to get.
If I may just interject for a sec, one of the biggest problems that the truckers have is that if a Canadian trucker is not vaccinated, he still has to produce a PCR test showing that he tests negative. But then he has to quarantine for 5 to 14 days, depending on where it is. This is the crux of the argument, because the truckers, they can't make a living doing that.
Mm-hmm. And so it's why I would encourage others to look at the approach we've taken in Brampton as that reasonable middle of the road position. We encourage everyone to get vaccinated, but we're not going to create a situation where people lose their employment based on their vaccination status. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in some areas, whether it's in Ottawa or in some other cities, you've got longtime employees who are being pushed out of the workforce. And so I just think in every debate, and I know this is a polarized discussion, but there has to be a level of
So do you feel there's an end to it now, Mayor Brown? Are you feeling that we're slowly approaching the time now where things will slowly start to reopen, less cases? Do you have that feeling governmentally? I mean, you know more about this stuff than we do because you get more reports that we do, but the feeling is that we're getting to an end of this.
Yeah, I believe that we're going to start to see this pandemic in the rear view mirror. And if you look at the case escalations with Omicron, well, the case decreases are going to be just as rapid. And so we're starting to see that trend emerge. So I'm very optimistic that we're going to see our country and frankly, the world in a much better situation.
So about 30,000 Canadian truck drivers cross the border every day, 30,000. And last month, in November 2021, $54 billion just in that month happened. So it's a very important thing. And they really are additional frontline workers for sure.
It's critical to our supply chain. And let me remind everyone that during the pandemic, it was the trucking sector that was hit very hard with COVID-19. We had high COVID numbers amongst our essential workers, and the logistics sector, the trucking sector, was very much on the front lines of that. And so I certainly believe there's a debt of gratitude owed to our logistics sector for helping us get through the difficult pandemic. Our supply chain, our grocery stores, our logistics sector, it wouldn't have been intact if it wasn't for these frontline essential workers.
Well, an interesting point is Canada really prides itself on local produce. But in the wintertime, everything's shipped up from the States or points south. So it's all by truck. And that's very, very important. So hats off to all the truckers, and because there's a lot of them that work and live in the city of Brampton. Again, we encourage you to citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. Leave your comment and your question, and we'll put it up. One thing that has come up, Mayor Brown, with all respect, is I'm hearing people talking about a barn load full of $1 million. And there are some people in Brampton who are a little upset about spending $1 million on a barn. We're waiting for a second architectural report. Some people say that, well, the barn can't stay. It's got to be replaced with other things. So then it's not. I mean, this is a really kerfuffle. I mean, and I believe in our last show in December, you commented, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you didn't vote in favor of it, but that the council did, or whoever did. I mean, we really got to resolve this, because there's a lot of people, and I hear the folks in Brampton, they'll stop me in Brampton. You got to ask them about that barn for $1 million. What the hell? So how are we going to resolve this? I mean, you're the captain of the team, but some of the players went rogue. How are we going to fix this?
Yeah, and I'd say the vast majority of times I've been pleased with the direction that council has taken, and we've for a large part of this term agreed on the big issues. We've passed all our budgets unanimously, passed our transportation master plan unanimously. On the issue of this expense, I disagreed with the councillor who put it forward. I just don't believe that fixing a broken barn should cost $1 million. And so I believe we need to be custodians of the taxpayer dollar with an extreme level of diligence. Be careful with every dollar spent. And in this case, $1 million spent on a beat up barn, unfortunately ended up on the front pages of national papers, and that's not good for Brampton's reputation. And so I've reminded the councillors who put this forward that you need to look at government and say, how would the private sector manage that expense? And if you couldn't justify it in your own lives, you couldn't justify it for a small business, you can't justify it on the backs of taxpayers simply because you can go there so easily.
to continue on that point, if it's a scenario where people feel that passionate about the historical merit and where it is, then that's the kind of thing that I think funds should be derived from the public
Fundraise,
sector.
yeah.
What people are upset is you're spending my tax dollars to put $1 million in a barn, for Christmas
that's
sake.
not
I mean,
even from
you
that's
put
not even
cow
from
poop in a
Brampton.
barn.
Yeah, Michael, it's worse. It's not even from Brampton. It was a barn in Caledon.
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, so I'm just telling you out there, and to all those people who stopped me last week, don't worry, we asked the question.
Yeah.
So here's another little point of contention here. You know, last Wednesday, you put forth a motion to the Ford government to repeal Bill 124 to deal with the nursing shortage. And that's a very important issue because their pay levels had been restricted. It passed by a vote of 10-1, with Councillor Charmaine Williams being the only one to vote no. Now, here's the rub in this, if one would say. She's running for the Provincial Conservative Party in the next election. So with her vote being no, clearly indicating that potentially provincial issues are more important than maybe local issues. Now, that's an assumption on my part, on our part. But doesn't that concern you? I mean, how do you? I mean, I know it's election season. I think when is it, July or something like? I know the writ drops for the provincials in May, and I think municipal is later. But the point is, doesn't this concern you about this vote?
So let me say, first of all, that on the issue of trying to get accreditation for international nurses and physicians, Councillor Williams has been very helpful on trying to get the new hospital in Brampton. She was part of the team that did that push. On this issue of Bill 124, I can only assume she might have been under some obligations as a candidate provincially not to take a position against the government. But it didn't matter. It was a 10-1 vote. And, you know, I would say that I'm glad that our council took a position in support of our frontline nurses. They've been through a storm during the healthcare system over the last
Agreed.
18 months. We've been short-staffed. At one point at Brampton Civic, instead of it being one nurse for every 4 patients, we were one nurse for every 10. And so their workload, the weight that they carried, you know, they were heroes, and there's no reason that they should be in a worse scenario when it comes to compensation than other public sector positions, whether it be firefighters or police officers. I certainly think we need to compensate our nurses fairly.
Well, I would suggest that in a situation like that, an obligation to a future potential position then would either count the councillor not voting because of a conflict of interest, or honor the constituents who voted her in for what she was doing for the city. But I'll leave the rest of that debate.
And she may have felt comfortable knowing that the motion was going to pass 10-1. So, you know, honestly,
no, that's skirting the issue from my point of view. I still think, I mean, you gotta come home with the person who took you to the dance. I mean, if you wanna go to another party afterwards, that's it. Anyways, editorializing, not allowed to do that. So Williams Parkway, this wall. Now we've got this ugly blue wall. I don't know how much you guys spent on this, but you got an ugly blue wall, and supposedly council now is thinking about turning into a big piece of wall art. I have great trepidations of who's going to choose what the wall art is, what it's going to look like, and for goodness sake, is it going to cost more money?
So we inherited some headaches when this council got elected. And when I got elected in 2018, this is one of them. The previous council decided to create this noise wall at a cost of $9.6 million. And they were going to remove all the trees. So there was $62,000 spent on removing trees. And there's this ugly noise wall. And it fell on our lap. It was not my decision to spend that $10 million on that noise wall.
10 barns.
But now we're in a position as, you know, how do we fix this? And so we did a community survey asking what they would like us to do with this noise wall. It was a community decision that rather than have a freeway here, that we would incorporate active transportation. And so that's why the noise wall isn't needed. There's not going to be a freeway there. The residents decided they wanted Williams Parkway to remain as is, with additions only of active transportation. So in terms of that noise wall, the public choice was for public art. And I, as mayor of the city, rely greatly on the advice of our residents. We work for them, and if the residents want to augment this wall and make it the best it can be by incorporating public art, like we're looking at doing across the city, then we're going to make the best of a bad situation. I wish we spent that 10 million on something else. There are so many other priorities that I would have preferred that we spend that 10 million on.
But Mayor Brown, some people are a bit worried. It's already different colored. At least there's some uniformity. There's a risk that if you do public art, you're going to have graffiti style stuff. There's a lot of people who have trepidation that you're going to make it look ghastly.
So the Arts and Cultural Associations, ACEDA, in the city is going to put forward a proposal for council to consider. So we'll get a sense of what the proposal is before obviously we would proceed. But right now we're determining if is that a proposal we even want to see. And I would say this. It's an opportunity to cultivate the best talent we have in the arts and cultural community in the city, and we're making the best of a challenging scenario that we inherited, and there seems to be a lot of energy and interest in the cultural community, the artistic community, in terms of what's possible here. So I haven't seen the proposals. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm certainly willing to look at them.
We're talking to Mayor Patrick Brown, the mayor of Brampton, and you're watching City Studios Ask Brown. You can always contact us at citystudio.ca/Ask Brown if you have any questions or you have any story ideas that you think might be interesting. We do Mayor Brown's program on the last Tuesday of every month. One more question here. $100 million presentation by Rogers. Which is nice when people are actually bringing money to the city instead of spending 10 barns on a wall. So tomorrow, that's a big day. $100 million presentation by Rogers. Any idea what they're going to pitch you with, or what it's about?
Yeah, I can share a bit of a hint. It is a transformational investment in our downtown that would create significant employment, high tech, high-end jobs. That would be, in my opinion, a game changer in our downtown. So stay tuned to their presentation tomorrow.
Nicely done, everybody. That's called a tease. Very, very nice. As we're heading down to the last moments of the show, anything that you want to say to the folks? Give you the floor here. If there's a message or something. When does Chinguacousy skating rink close?
Well, as long as we have cold weather, which in Canada is going to be for quite some time, I'm hopeful that our rinks will stay open well into March. So make the best of it. You can have a lot of fun in the winter, and we've got some great outdoor amenities. So take advantage of them and enjoy the beauty of the Great White North.
I got to say, that's one of the coolest skating rinks in the country. That is very, very cool. So Faz tells me we have a question. What's the question there, Faz? Here it is. Do we have an ETA for when Brampton will advise the summer camp availability for 2022? Great question.
So I don't anticipate any restrictions this summer. I believe COVID's going to be well in the rearview mirror, and so we will have a full summer camp roster, similar to what you saw in 2019. And I will inquire with our recreation staff when that will be released. I imagine that they're going to wait for the province to officially announce that we're fully open. Right now, the timetable for the province to be fully open is around March, and so I think it would be in that period that those details would be released. Right now, we're still under COVID restrictions that I think will be removed in the near future.
So one more question. Way to go, Brampton. When will the university be in Brampton? Well, yes, the Golden Ribbon. I always keep thinking of Baskin and Robbins. The Golden Ribbon Committee is probably still looking at things, and I know that supposedly we should have a report due soon. I think that's what the question's all about. Any idea when that's going to be released to the public?
So first of all, we're going to get the med school. The province has announced that, and that's prestigious. We haven't had a new med school created in the GTA in 100 years. So I want to start off by saying I'm grateful for the province for that momentous decision. But I'm also pushing for our own university. I believe that a city the size of Brampton, the 9th largest in Canada, we're the only big city in Canada in the big city mayors caucus that doesn't have our own university, and I'm going to continue to pester the provincial government that we want to see that dream become a reality.
Yep. Well, I think that just about does it. Mayor Patrick Brown, thank you so much for being with us and taking all the questions. We meet Mr. Brown every Tuesday, the last Tuesday of every month, for Please Ask Brown. You're watching citystudios.ca. On behalf of Fazil Khan and Don McLeod, my name is Michael A. Charbon. Thanks for watching. Please give us your questions and your comments. We look forward to seeing you at the end of February. Have a great January.